to be learned about this strange world.
But the journey to the edge of space was not far enough.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ethereal Explorer podcast. I am your host, Amy, and I will be your guide today on our journey into statistical astrology. And I'm very excited about our guest today, Trenton Wayne of Trenton Wayne Astrology. We are super lucky to have him today. He's very busy, globetrotting, currently in London. Welcome, Trenton.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's truly a pleasure to share my knowledge with everybody and you as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for being here and helping us expand our knowledge. We'll ask you a little bit about you and what you're doing in a minute. And so let's get into it. Statistical astrology. It's fun, I promise. Actually, if you like astrology and you're a nerd like me, you are going to love this episode. So get your nerd glasses on and follow us down this rabbit hole.
For sure. I promise it's not your mathematics that you had in school.
Nuh-uh. Okay. Yeah. So Trenton's approach to astrology is really cool, and it draws from a more sort of concrete and measurable place than the astrology we're used to that tends to be more interpretive or narrative based. And this sort of statistical and data-driven approach and perspective, I find really refreshing to have, especially for those of us who are more science-minded, or even those who are currently skeptical or have come from sort of a skeptical place like me, because it is more specific and I think comes with a lot of accuracy, to be honest. So Trenton, tell us about you and how you came to be the statistical astrologer today.
Well, for starters, thank you again for having me on. It's truly a pleasure to be talking about all of my findings and my research and all that good jazz. But like you said, my name is Trenton Wayne, and I'm the creator and founder of Trenton Wayne Astrology, which aims to enhance others' understanding of astrology through fun and entertaining content. And a little of my journey and my background in astrology. I used to be super skeptical of astrology, just like you. And I was introduced to it in April of 2018. And once I was introduced to it and just found out so much more and how deep it actually went, I was hooked. So once I was hooked, I did so much research, and it led me to opening my practice, Trenton Wayne Astrology, in May of 2020. And it actually started as Trenton Wayne Astrology Practice, which aims to help others' understanding of their astrological placements through techniques rooted in tropical astrology. And then I wanted to take this approach of doing content and just kind of getting my research out to other people in a digestible and an understandable way. So that's how Trenton Wayne Astrology was born. And just to understand astrology and the deeper patterns to a deeper perspective, I started doing all of these astrological studies. And from my findings, I just found out there's so many of these patterns that aren't really discussed in astrology. And it takes some understanding in astrology to know these patterns and how they play a role in the correlations to our reality.
Yeah. And I have a question though, too, because I think it has a lot to do with your interest in this, is that you're a twin, right? And so I think like necessarily when you are a twin, you have, on the surface level, you get the same astrological reading. It's like, oh, I'm a Libra. So like you and your twin get the same, information, but it makes sense that it's necessary to look very deep and like at the very minute degrees of difference between your chart and your brother's chart, or else they kind of look the same. Or how similar are your chart and your twin's chart?
So me and my twin were born 78 minutes apart. So we actually have two different risings, which sets up our charts in two different ways. So I'm a Gemini ascendant and my brother is a Cancer ascendant. So yes, we have the same astrological placements for our planets in our celestial bodies, like the sun, and except for our sun, like our arc minutes are a little different. But nobody's gonna, look at that at a face value and be like, "Oh my goodness, there's a difference." But our Mars is the same, our Jupiter is the same, Saturn is the same, Uranus is the same, Neptune, Pluto, but the difference is our moon, because of the 78-degree difference, and the moon in astrology travels 13 degrees through the day. So you can only imagine how much of a difference that is. I believe his degree placement for his moon is at 21 degrees. Mine is at 20. And then our degree for our ascendant is obviously different. So we have a difference of 19.5 degrees for our ascendant. And one of the things that I actually posted up on my TikTok and Instagram is that 1 degree in astrology equals 4 Earth minutes. So if you multiply 4 times 19.5, you get 78 minutes.
I love this way that you're explaining how to differentiate the charts, because this is, I think, your take, your descriptions of how you're finding all of these things kind of leads back to why, like, I've perceived astrology to be so inaccurate in the past, but it's because nobody's tends to really get into the specifics like that. And I think there's so much value there. So, it's really nice to hear you just explain that and how deeply you understand that. So,
Absolutely. I feel that because, this is kind of a continuation on the conversation we had the other day. I feel that because of how astrology was pitched to the general population, everybody has this fixed perspective of what astrology is, or they may not take it as serious because of what they see somebody doing on the entertainment sides of things. However, once you start to realize how deep it goes and you start understanding the different layers and the different perspectives that astrology offers, you then see how deep the field of study actually goes.
yeah, there's a real depth to it. So to bring in the statistics part of this, like, I know you do a lot of studies, and so tell us about, a study that you've done, and so what statistics in astrology actually looks like.
For sure. So one of the bigger studies that I have been working on thus far is actually based in the American child stars. So what I did for that study, I looked to 3 specific planets: Jupiter, Saturn, and Venus. Jupiter in astrology is the planet of luck and expansion. It also navigates opportunity. Then there's Saturn. Saturn is the planet of your career and your public image. Then there's Venus. Venus is the planet that navigates your financial resources on this physical plane, along with, the creative side and the beauty side and the, relationship side. But for this study, I was focusing more on the financial aspects of it. Now, I know I'm studying American child stars, so I'm like, okay, where in the chart does it talk about children, or does it refer to children? So I know with my astrological knowledge that Gemini, Cancer, and Leo are the 3 signs in the chart that link to children. So I'm like, okay, so if I see these planets in those 3 signs, their natural houses, which is the 3rd house, 4th house, or 5th house, or if they're at a degree of one of those signs. So for Gemini, the degrees are going to be 3 degrees, 15 degrees, 27 degrees. For Cancer, they're going to be 4 degrees, 16 degrees, or 28 degrees. And then for Leo, it's going to be 5 degrees, 17 degrees, or 29 degrees. Let's just see if any of these planets are at these placements. I'm not going in saying, oh, they're definitely going to be there. It's kind of like my own scientific experiment, right?
Yeah.
You're going in, and this is my hypothesis. It's just not like I'm not doing the, if this is here, then this is here, like we learned in science class growing up. But, I kind of posed like, okay, let's see if they're there. And then I'm going to just log in to pull up my data here, just so it pulls up. And the statistic for, by the way, I studied 1,191 individuals in this study. So out of the 1,191 individuals, for the people that had Jupiter in Gemini, third house or at a Gemini degree, Cancer, fourth house or at a Cancer degree, or Leo, fifth house, Leo degree, 637 of those individuals, which is 53.5%, have Jupiter in that placement. 616 of the individuals has Saturn in those placements, so that's 51.7% of the individuals. And then 614 out of the 1,191 have Venus in that placement, and that's 51.6% of the individuals. And then from there, I'm like, okay, what other statistics can I get from the people that may have birth data, right? Because I can get so much more from them. And when I say birth data, I'm really referring to somebody that may have a time of birth associated with their natal chart, because not everybody has their time of birth posted online, right?
Yeah.
So with the people that have birth data, which is 325 of those individuals, I'll go through and I'll be like, okay, what's your rising? So let's see, like, what's the most popular rising sign out of all of these individuals? And then I'll go and study like further placements. So for example, one of the placements that I was looking at was Mars. The first couple of individuals that I did, I saw that Mars was in an Earth sign, house, or degree. So with Mars in an Earth sign, house, or degree, that's kind of like hustler mentality. You work very hard. It's like workaholic. And anybody that is from America knows the work culture there. But like as a child star, you're working these long hours, and you're working in environments that are pretty much catered for adults.
Yeah.
So I went through and I got that statistic. So for the people that have Mars in an Earth sign, for example, out of the 325 people that have birth data, 192 have Mars in an Earth sign, house, or degree. So that's 59.1%. Then I got further data. It was like, okay, let's see where the moon is. For the moon being in Earth sign, houses, or degrees, the moon being in these houses tells me you could have started working in your childhood, right? So out of the 325 people that have the birth data, 199 of these people have their moon in an Earth sign, house, or degree. So that's 61.2% of the individuals that have birth data. So I'm like, all right, let's go deeper. So then I I found this pattern, which is the most prevalent pattern out of all of my findings. This is a pattern that you won't see at surface level. You kind of need to know a little bit of astrological knowledge in order to understand this pattern. So this is a derivative pattern. So this is kind of like the ruler of one house being in a specific sign or a house or a degree. So I was like, okay. And it's kind of similar to the moon being in an Earth sign, house, or a degree. But I was like, okay, let's take the fourth house ruler and see if it's in an Earth sign, house, or degree. And it's basically telling me the same thing as the moon in an Earth sign, house, or a degree. It basically tells me that you probably started working in your childhood. And obviously, as a child star, you were doing some work on camera, right? And you were getting paid something in order to be on people's televisions or wherever you were accessing your form of entertainment. So out of the 325 people that have birth data, 209 people have this pattern, their fourth house ruler being in an Earth sign, house, or degree. So that's 64.3% of the people that have birth data.
Wow. So that's pretty cool. So being able to look at sort of groups of people and see the correlation in their chart. And it's kind of like, so this way, it's like you're sort of proving a predictive mechanism in astrology. However, I've actually been having a lot of conversations with people about this recently. As far as astrology goes, it has this predictive potential. However, there's also free will involved. So this is what people are kind of disappointed if they're hearing specifics about their astrology chart and their life isn't really shaping up that way. But it's all up to you too. Like, just to say that, like, let's say you have a child and you take this information that Trenton's giving you and you're thinking, oh my gosh, my child could be a child star. They have all the placements. Like, whoa. But like, it's also all of this choice in life. And so these aren't predictions, but they're potentials, correct? You know, and
Right. These are all correlations to specific actions that people take in their reality. I'm never going to say that, these placements are the placements to have if you're going to be a child star and, this is going to navigate your life in this specific direction. That's not what astrology is about, and it shouldn't be used in that kind of ballpark, if you will. It should be used to just make correlations. And like you said, we have free will on this plane. It just so happens that these people that I was studying, out of the 1,191 people that I studied, they all happened to be in the same field of work, right? And all I'm doing is going to see any similarities astrologically that they may have, right? Yes, I know, there's a lot of things that I may have an understanding of in astrology or whatever, but I can't sit here and be like, this is the reason for this happening, or this is, this is in this, is written in the stars, so it has to be, that's not what this is.
yeah, it's not really a deterministic system where it's guaranteeing some outcome. It's just like, here are potentials. Like, here are, you did another one with centered on leadership and presidents, and yeah, and it was really cool to hear like the correlations of presidents having these leadership potentials and qualities in their charts.
Absolutely.
That wouldn't be to say like, oh, your kid's going to be president. Like, it's just that, wow, this person has some really good potentials to be a leader in some way in the community. And then based on life choices, you see where that takes people. But yeah.
Right. So for this, for the U.S. president study, for example, I kind of pulled the same, I did the same approach to how I did the American Child Stars study. So like for U.S. presidents, there's only been 45 U.S. presidents, right? So luckily, 44 out of the 45 of them have birth data. So this one was really interesting. So I could gain a lot of data from this study and from everybody that was posted in this, bigger list of people that happen to be the United States president. So with this one, I was like, what are some placements that I can correlate in astrology to leadership? So for this one, I looked to mundane astrology because this one helped me out a lot with understanding like leadership and presidency, and they may have some influence on the law. So I was like, okay, let's just get all of those signs and house placements and degrees together. So with this one, I looked to 3 planets or planets and celestial bodies, I should say, because somebody may be listening to this and being like, the sun is not a planet, it's a star. And I'm like, I know it's a star, and the moon is not a planet, it's a satellite. I know these things. It's just easier to just say planet. But I looked to 3 planets and celestial bodies. I looked to Jupiter, Saturn, and the sun. So Jupiter is the planet that relates to law in mundane astrology. Saturn is the planet that deals with leadership or power in government. And the sun typically represents a president or the head of state. So I looked at those 3 planets in Leo, which is the ruler of the sun, or it's the sun's domicile, if you will. The 5th house, which is the domicile of Leo, or a Leo degree, which is 5 degrees, 17 degrees, or 29 degrees. Those 3 planets in Sagittarius, the 9th house, because that's home to Sagittarius, in Sagittarius degrees. So that's 9 degrees or 21 degrees. Or Capricorn, which is Saturn's home, the 10th house, or a Capricorn degree. So that's 10 degrees or 22 degrees. And I gathered data with that. And what I did was basically, like I said, the same thing that I did with the American Child Star Studies. I went through everybody's charts, got the statistics. So like, for example, with Jupiter. 29 out of the 45 individuals have Jupiter in Leo, Sagittarius, or Capricorn in the fifth house, ninth house, or 10th house, or at one of the degrees. But again, the biggest pattern that I'm looking for is actually the derivative, because that pattern tends to play the most significant role out of all of them. So that would be their fifth house ruler being in Leo, Sagittarius, or Capricorn in the fifth house, ninth house, or 10th house, or at one of the degrees. And 37 out of the 44 people that have birth data, which is 84.1%, have that pattern.
Wow. That's so,
You know, so it's like,
so also for people listening, if it sounds like a lot, it's not something, this isn't like a whole thing that you need to memorize or know. But what I love is, because Trenton, I've been following you on your Instagram, and you are very talented at breaking this down, like breaking your perspective down into these bite-sized videos that I love. And I'm actually just like learning a little bit every day. And I'm just like really getting on this page. And so all at once, it's like, it can feel like, what? Oh my God, that's like a lot to look at. But it's actually not really. And it's just opening us up to, I think, seeing a new way to look at charts. So like follow Trenton on his Instagram, because you'll get this information in a way that's like firstly entertaining and so informative. So yeah, I love that. I love that. So is there like a practical application to doing these studies, or is it just for the sake of proving correlations, just to say, hey, like,
so for me, a lot of this is just rooted in curiosity, really.
Yeah.
I'm just interested to know if there are deeper correlations than what's at surface level. Like, we all know that, it's fact that these people, for example, for this study, they were all the United States president, right? We can't deny that. We can't say, oh, this person wasn't the United States president, unless there was somebody in the list that wasn't. But for me being an analyst in astrology and having a passion in astrology, I'm like, okay, let's see if there are any underlying patterns that may bring this general group together, right? And let's see if there are any commonalities between these people that may have, I don't know, that may be a cause or a correlation as to what brought them into leadership, right?
Yeah.
So it's all based out of curiosity at the end of the day.
That's awesome.
And to piggyback on what you said about this being a lot of information, yes, it is a whole lot that's thrown at you at once. And for some people that may be newer to astrology listening, this could be super overwhelming. But I do love breaking it down for people to understand, because I feel like that's also a huge issue in astrology, is that not everybody has the ability to break things down into digestible amounts of information for people to understand at a general level, right? Because that's the biggest part of astrology that everybody, wants at the end of the day. You want somebody to understand what it is that you're talking about. So I feel like that's a purpose of mine in my practice that I do, to help others understand and to ultimately shift their perspective in astrology so that they can have a deeper, more open-minded approach.
That's great. I really appreciate that. And as well, I was a skeptic at some point, because just the generalizations didn't resonate with me. But as I do more specific looking into it in your style of analytics, I'm like, oh, damn, like this is actually really on point. So I recommend everybody to go a little deeper into their understanding of astrology in this way. So I think to bring it home, this is kind of like the question, or the issue is that publicly so far, astrology has just been shown as very deterministic, but oftentimes people aren't resonating with the narratives that are given. It's causing skepticism. And so this approach gets you closer to accuracy. And accuracy is what the people want. I think.
Right.
So higher accuracy. And so I think hopefully, not hopefully, but like more leaning a little bit more away from an interpretive approach to astrology and maybe towards more of a concrete approach will help this issue. And I think what you're doing ultimately acknowledges and shows that astrology has these depths that we rarely get into. And in those depths lies the accuracy, I think. And so this approach could be the antidote to skepticism as well. And kind of gets like at the heart of insights that I think resonate deeper with people. So that's why I like what you're doing.
Thank you. And yeah, like I feel that with this information, there's a little bit of a voice that's just in the back of my mind, like nobody else is doing this. So like the fact that you're doing this is number one, it's super cool. And number two, you never know how this is going to influence a greater collective of people that may be skeptical in astrology.
Mm-hmm.
But to piggyback off of a point, a lot of people, and I talked about this briefly before, a lot of people have the skepticism that they do because of how it was introduced to the media, right? So in the 1930s, there was this astrologer, R.H. Naylor, who had a radio show column, and he wanted everybody to get into astrology and what he was talking about through horoscopes, right? But in order to get the general public on board, you use their sun sign, right? Because everybody knows their date of birth, but not everybody knows their time of birth, right? That's what a horoscope is actually looking at, right? Horoscope is the observation of the hour, right? Scope is observation and oro is hour.
I love that.
So like, and not everybody knows how to even properly read a horoscope or knows what goes into reading a horoscope, right? Whenever, let's say you're, like for me, my sun sign is Scorpio, never really resonated with the characteristics of it. But when I read a horoscope for Scorpio, they're placing Scorpio on the ascendant mark, right? But everybody has a rising, so why not just use that rising?
Right. That's so interesting. So if you don't know your birth time, then you have to almost default to looking mostly at your sun sign. But if you have your birth time, is that what opens up all the more specific degrees and all that?
So if you're looking at a horoscope, a lot of people tend to look at their sun sign. For me, where I am now in my astrological journey, I'm just like, get an astrologer to help you out. Pull up your chart on astrotheme.com or astro-charts, and we can get as much information as we possibly can with the degree placements and the signs that they're sitting in. The only thing that we won't have is an ascendant that starts off the house cusps and how everything sits in a house, right?
Okay.
That's the only thing that we're missing. That's the only disconnect from somebody that may have a time of birth.
Okay.
Now, and that's why people say, oh, it's really, the more accurate your time is, the more accurate your chart will be, is because of how everything is set up in terms of a house cusp or what house your sun may sit in and stuff like that.
Do you think that if somebody was missing their birth time, you could guess it by interviewing them about their life and how they feel and how they go?
Ooh, very interesting. Oh my goodness, you're asking me about chart rectification. So I have a very unpopular...
It's a thing,
yes.
Okay.
Yes, I have an unpopular opinion about chart rectification because to me, as somebody that was very skeptical about astrology, I'm still skeptical about certain things within astrology. So it's not like now that I'm in the astrology world, I'm like, everything makes sense and everything is, rainbows and lollipops and gumdrops. No. There are definitely some things that I'm just like, I don't quite agree on it. And chart rectification is actually one of those things because the person interviewing you about, questions about your life, they're basing everything off of how you're answering them, right? And basically like how they're answering you is based off of how you're asking those questions, right? So it's kind of the whole system is it's working off of a system of bias at the end
Yes.
of the day.
Yes.
So we never know what this person's background is in astrology, or how, how, well they may, know something or not debunking chart rectification. For me, it's not something that I personally do. It's not something that I, include in my practice. It's because for me, it's not something that's concrete. It's not something that's backed by logic. So for me to utilize it, it's like I'm going to be honest and say I can only get so much data from your natal chart. We can still generate a chart, going to AstroTheme or astro-charts.com and seeing where everything is, because for me, you can still get data from your degree placements and the sign that a planet or celestial body sits in. But for me to sit here and ask you a round of questions about, your life, and based off of how you answer, I'm going to be like, oh, you must be a Gemini ascendant. How are you getting
Mm.
the degree placement out of that?
Mm.
How are you getting the house cusps out of that? You can
Okay.
only base everything off of a whole sign perspective, right? Which is a space based system, meaning that every house starts at 0 degrees. So there's more information to get from that, which would all be based out of a bias.
Okay, I totally get that. Yeah, like the leading questions thing. I didn't know chart rectification was a thing, so hey, I learned. Awesome. Yeah, and so is there any other tidbits or information that you want to put forward on this, or?
Yeah, just for the people that are newer to astrology, that are watching or listening in to this podcast, is to just keep an open mind. And a lot of people that tend to get into astrology, they tend to have that open mind. But for the skeptics that may be listening to this, or the people that may not have that upper hand with believing or understanding the logistics behind it, keep an open mind, because there's always the depths of something that isn't shown or isn't publicized like the entertainment side of astrology is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love that you said that you're even still skeptical on some levels, and that is so cool. And because you need that skepticism to almost fuel the curiosity and the research. Like, I love trying to prove something wrong, and sometimes in that proving it right, and then it's like, whoa, like that perspective is so powerful. So
And it kind of makes you believe and think that you're still on this journey of learning, right? Just because I am where I am in my astrology journey, and I instruct others or teach others about astrology, doesn't make me any less of a student. I'm still on my journey as well. So I'm still coming across things that I'm like, oh my God, this is cool. Did you know this? I didn't know this. It's still this learning journey that you're still, on. And with these studies, like, it's not like when I first started astrology, I knew, what zodiacal degrees were, meaning like every degree has a rulership of a zodiac sign. I didn't know any of that. As you learn and you continue learning, I think it's backed by skepticism. A lot of things are curiosity. Once you start learning about these things, it helps you to expand your mind so much more. But yeah, I'm skeptical about some things in astrology. Not everything makes sense to me still, and I
yeah.
don't think that everything within the field of astrology is going to make sense to me. There are some things that are going to make sense and some things that aren't. But I feel like having the balance of the things that do make sense and don't make sense is important to keep that line of curiosity open for you to delve into more things and learn new things and expand your minds.
Oh, so well said. I love that. Thank you so much for bringing all of this information and helping me and everyone listening help expand our understanding of the depths of astrology and what more we don't normally see. So thank you so much for bringing that today. I appreciate your time. Everybody follow Trenton at Trenton Wayne Astrology on TikTok and Instagram. Super entertaining. I'm so into it. Thank you so much, Trenton.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it again.
Okay, well, we'll definitely see you again on a different episode. I have 1,000 more questions to ask you. So, everybody, join us next time on the Ethereal Explorer podcast.
There is still a lot to be learned about this strange, strange, strange world.
But the journey to the edge of space was not far enough.